Well, so much for the romance of the dream return to Leicester. It looks like N'Golo Kante might have to retire through injury. Hello and welcome to Club 5, Part 8 of Non-League to Legend. I'm Kev, and coming up on today's episode, we've got games against Manchester City and Everton. But before we get into any of that, it's not even match day. This is so unlike me. We have breaking news. N'Golo Kante, a man who in his career previously has never been injured for more than 3 weeks, has damaged his Achilles tendon. He's out for 6 to 7 months. And not only that, he's on the verge of retirement following a damaged Achilles tendon. It might not even heal. That's not ideal. We'd kind of built a lot of our plans around having him back in the team because, you know, he's Mr. Consistent. He doesn't miss many games. He didn't play many games for Chelsea last year, and weirdly, he had this season here where he only played 4 games for Chelsea, despite, I say again, not being injured. So I don't really know what that season was about. I guess they had someone particularly awesome in that season, despite him being ever present for the 2 years before, the 3 years after, pretty much. I know he's not playing 38 games a season, but he's close to. It's just a bit... But I'm sad. I'm also a little bit sad because the season's not quite going the way I had planned. We got off to a decent start, a couple of Premier League wins early on, but we're now on 3 Premier League games without a win. We have drawn 2 of them. It's far from a disaster at the moment, and league position-wise, we are in 9th place, which, I mean, is perfectly fine. The pre-season prediction is 14th. The board... are the board looking for me to avoid relegation, or are they looking for mid-table? I don't actually remember what the board asked me for. I suppose we should check. The board are looking for mid-table, so we're top half of the table. That's better than mid-table. So if we finish there, it would be great. And we are only 1 point outside of the Europa League spots, and we're not going to push for the Champions League. But I don't like having that kind of run of form. I really struggle with being a mid-table team. I think I'd rather be in a relegation battle. Don't let me get into a relegation battle. That would be sad. Right, I'm now going to fast forward a couple of days and we'll come back and play Manchester City. Things are getting worse. This is why I should never live stream the transfer window. Kev, you don't need 3 goalkeepers in your Premier League squad. You'll be fine. Just have 2 registered. Well, it's going to be Tor all over again. I now have 1 goalkeeper to get me through until Christmas, and he's completely unproven and potentially not very good. This is going to end really badly, isn't it? On this, while we're chatting about injuries, did I mention that Guindal, the guy we signed because Cesar got a long-term injury, we needed a decent striker, he's now got his long-term injury too. He's got torn knee ligaments, so we've not got a goalkeeper, we've not got our star midfield player, and we only have 1 striker. Plus he hasn't scored all season. In light of all that, and in light of this run of form that we've been on, and frankly, the distinct lack of attacking oomph that we seem to have been offering using the diamond that we've been using, the time has come, we're changing the system up, and we're going back to the Oxford system, where we had 4-3-1-2, predictably, with a Carolera and Mazzala. So far, so very Portsmouth, but the difference is I've taken off all team instructions and I'm adjusting the mentality and the team shape before each match. So we are at home, but we're playing Man City, who are very good, so we're going to counter-attack at home with no team instructions. It worked really well when we were at Oxford, so well that it's one of the few tactics that I've actually got saved because it was so effective. I'm hoping it's going to give us a little bit more going forward because Jonathan Miller is, amongst all the worries that we've got, he's my biggest worry because he's 6 games in and hasn't scored a goal yet. And he was in such good form at the end of last season, scoring almost a goal a game for like the last 10 games. And I was very excited, and I've kind of didn't really pay attention to bringing in strikers over the summer, even though the star ratings may have suggested we perhaps needed one, because Jonathan Miller was so good. Yeah. So, this is the team, and this is our 1 goalkeeper now, Nikola Kalazic. I mean, this might end up being a blessing in disguise. He's already got 11 caps for Sweden. He's only 21, and he does have 4.5-star potential. The issue is he's nowhere near as good currently as Svilar is, but 2 months of regular football in the Premier League might be exactly what he needs to start fulfilling some of that potential. So, you never know. We might have a new star. Kalasic is going to be in goal with a back four of Leo, Panzo, Oliveira and Danilo, with Storaro, Portanova and Onomar in midfield, and Almeida in behind Adonis and Miller. For all these young English players I keep talking about as having and as signing, there's not a lot of English in that team, is there? Onomar and Miller. And then I guess Murphy, Ralston's Scottish, I think. David Hall, I think, is English. Yeah. Galbraith is Northern Irish, I think. Yeah. And I think Tony Gardner's English. So there are a few English players on the bench, and British players as well. But not so much in the first team, which I guess it's not a big deal for us at the moment. I think that becomes more of an issue as and when we get into Europe. And look at the state of that Manchester City team. Goodness me. We are in for a treat today. Yes, we've looked good in training. I don't know who he is, but let's get into the game. If we can come out of this not embarrassing ourselves, I will take that as a reason to persist with this tactic for another game. I'm not expecting a result today. Counter-attack him. We might just nick a goal here and there. You never know. But we're going to get thumped by City, presumably. And if we don't, then that's a big thumbs up for the Oxford tactic, as opposed to the Diamond. That I think the big issue we had with the Diamond, well, there was two. One is the fact that we didn't really have a proper defensive midfield player. I was playing Kante further forward because I wanted his energy up there. Probably broke him by getting him to run around a lot. I was playing Portanova back there. He's not... although he's officially a natural defensive midfielder, he's more comfortable, more suited to the positions when he plays further forward in the main part of midfield. But having a midfield of Storaro and Kante, they're both quite defensively minded. Portanova is being asked to be defensively minded, and we just didn't have any penetration coming through from the midfield. The wing-backs weren't pushing on as much as I hoped they would. And we were kind of leaving our forwards quite isolated, whereas this system, with Onomar there as a Mazzala pushing forward, and we've got Suto as an option who can come on and do that. I've not really given Suto an opportunity yet this season, but if Onomar doesn't take the opportunity over the next game or two, Suto can definitely come back in as that Mazzala again and try and offer a bridge between our midfield and attack. He's sat there on the bench, patiently waiting for his chance, thinking at some point he'll give up and go back to wingers. Little does he know, I don't have a left winger. I don't have the option. It would be Marcus Edwards, I think, is the only guy we've got who can play. Or Adonis, I suppose. Edwards is injured. He's another one on the injured list, I think, unless he might have come back to training now. But he played one game in the Carabao Cup and went off injured quite early on, from what I recall. Adonis, I guess, could drift out onto the left-hand side. In fact, we could adjust this 11 that's on the pitch now just by making the one change. Oh, what a goal from Storaro. Forget about making changes. Storaro's just scored an absolute beauty. We've had him cramped back playing as a ball-winning midfielder all season. Give him a little bit of freedom as the Carrilero. It's the first time I've seen him in the opposition half all year. And look how far forward he is, and it's a beautiful finish. Just before the half-hour mark, it's Leicester 1, Manchester City 0. Well, there you go. Oxford didn't work because they've equalised immediately. I was going to say my Oxford tactic is clearly the one. But, I mean, to be fair, we're not doing too badly. 1-1 after half an hour against a City team the way their City team is. I mean, why are our two players on the... I don't like this whole having players on the line thing. They're not even on the post. They're just stood there on the line, playing everybody on side. Why stand two people behind the goalkeeper if they're not going to make any attempts to block the shot that comes in? Makes no sense. Just get him a bit further forward. And I know that's something I can control myself, but I don't trust myself with the set pieces. I've played around with them before, and it causes... I do more harm than good. And I know there are articles out there I can read, and there are videos I can watch, but I don't know. I always feel a little bit... To me, it goes into the same category as looking at downloaded tactics. I think it doesn't fit in with the realism element I look for in non-league to legend. I'd rather figure it out for myself, and I feel like with set pieces, at this stage of my career, I'm now in the Premier League. I shouldn't be figuring out how to defend corners at this point. I should have figured that out earlier on. And if I still don't know it now, it's probably not the time to experiment. Did Miller just get his first goal of the season? He did! Huzzah! Jonathan Miller is back, boys and girls. Onomar, he's done a good job out there as the Mazzala. Plays it back to Danilo, who plays Onomar back in again. Squares it to Miller, and finally we get a goal out of Jonathan Miller, and hopefully that's him back now, and he'll start to recapture the form that he had towards the end of last season. And the big improvement that we've seen today is with scoring goals. I mean, it seems obvious. We're not creating masses of chances. We've only had the one clear-cut chance. We've only had 4 shots in this first half. But I don't know if the tactical tweak has given them a bit more confidence or if it's just a coincidence. But we're actually scoring goals. We're finishing off the chances that we're creating. We were creating chances here and there with the diamond system, but we weren't scoring them. So there's only so long I can live in a world where I'm drawing 0-0 at home to Sunderland, or I forget some of the boring results that we had. But I'd rather lose 4-3 at home to Manchester City than draw 0-0 away against Sunderland. We've got to be out there pushing for goals, and if that means we sometimes get thumped, then we sometimes get thumped. We need to get back to the Kev system, and I realise I'm playing counter-attacking today, but that being said, we've still scored 2 goals, and that's important. I mean, that might be the one tweak that we needed, going counter-attacking. Although, we fiddled with that a little bit with the diamond. We weren't always attack with it. Right, into the second half. Still drawing at the moment, which is marvellous as far as I'm concerned. David Hall sat there on the bench. He's still not got his first goal yet for us either. I mean, he does look a little bit out of his depth. I know there was a couple of people in the comments yesterday saying he looked quite threatening when he came on. He did, but his finishing was so wayward, and I think that's kind of been the story with David Hall. He looks eager, he looks keen. We'll have another look at him now. He's excitable. He just isn't finishing anything, and that it was weird because it wasn't an issue that he had at Portsmouth. I'm not going to take Oliveira off to bring on a fullback in his place. What we might do is take off Leo and bring on Amavi, just to get some fresh legs into the back four. Neither of our centre-backs have played particularly well, which is a bit of a problem. We've got the young lad from Wolves, whose name I can't remember. Might be time to have him sat on the bench for situations like this, where those two just aren't performing. Almeida, I think we're going to take off and bring on Suto. And maybe... I've not actually tried Suto in behind the front two. It might be worth having a look. Let's have a look at Suto as the attacking midfielder for the last 10 minutes. I normally would play him as the Mazzala, but it looked like he can actually play there, so it might be we need to just switch up what position he's training for and get him a little bit further forward. But then I guess all that talk about him being the bridge between the midfield and the attack is all for nothing if he's then part of the attack. But Onomar's in behind here. Can he square it? He does. Miller. Hall again. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. David Hall just... It's there on a plate for him, and he just kicks it straight into a keeper who's already lying down on the floor from the previous save. I can't complain. 2-2 against Manchester City is fine. I am frustrated with David Hall, though. He needs to come good soon. Well, that was fun while it lasted. I've never had a player retire through injury before, I don't think. He's announced his retirement. He's retiring next week. Kante is done. We're saving 100,000. I mean, I'm not going to ask him to reconsider because he's going to save 100,000. We're saving £100,000 a week on his wages. I'll try and offer him a staff role, but I genuinely didn't expect that to happen. That's frustrating. Well, there it is. He's done. He wouldn't sign a contract as a coach. He wants to be a director of football. Oh, I can actually try again now. Can I get him in? That's half the money he was asking for when he was still at the club as well. Is it going to let me suggest terms from his director of football? Let's just offer him a little bit. I mean, I could just bin off my director of football and bring him back. I don't actually know if he's any good. Hold on, let's have a look. Kante, director of football. What does a director of football need to be able to do? I mean, that's not great. What's my current director of football like? Director of football, John Rudkin is better than Kante, but he is old. He's director of football and head of youth development. Well, hang on a minute then. Can we just make you head of youth development and not have a secondary job? Huh. You really want this? No. Right, can I sack you then? Because you're too old. I don't want you doing both jobs. Mutual termination. So he's gone, Kante's coming in, and we got an insurance payout that can cover almost sacking him. Right, well, Kante's going to come back in as director of football, because why not? And we'll get a new head of youth development. Seems fair. There we go. Got my new director of football in place. Kante's my director of football. And goodness me, have I got someone fun lined up to be the new head of youth development and a new scout as well. We're getting the band back together. There's my new scout on considerably less than the £115,000 a week we were paying him last season as a player. But we've brought back in one of our legends. I mean, he's not a very good scout, but we brought him in mainly for the fact that he's a club legend, and we need to get more people on our club legend list back into the club, which is why this man is our new head of youth development. Like I said, getting the band back together. So we've got Kante as director of football, Vardy as head of youth development, and Riyad Mahrez is a scout. That seems like a good piece of business. So after a 2-week international break, there's just the one change to the team that drew against Manchester City. I am bringing Suto into the team as we did towards the end of that match. I'm going to play him in the position he's training for as a Mazzala and move Onamar up to play in behind the front two. It means Almeida drops down to the bench. And also joining him on the bench, Paulo Cesar, Mr. Sick Note himself, who, of course, picked up just one more injury during his recovery. But we haven't seen him play since the 18th of January when he tore his hamstring against Southampton. He had a recurrence of that torn hamstring 2 months later. Came back for pre-season training, but tore his knee ligaments jumping in a pre-season friendly against Wolfsburg, and then had a tight groin against Liverpool under 23s as he was recovering. But he is back on the bench, so presumably he'll get injured if he comes on today. And we've also got Kostic coming up onto the bench as well, so we don't find ourselves without a centre-back to bring on if needed. We're sticking with counter-attacking today. We're away from home against Everton. Everton, not as good as Man City, but as we're away from home, it makes sense to stick with the counter-attacking system. Yes, we want it. I mean, Cesar's not fit. I have just given him a new contract on a slight pay cut. I dug my heels in. He's on £1,000 a week less than he was before. But he is full of potential, and I think we can probably sell him on at some point. So I don't want to let him leave. Why is this such a long thing? This is like a press conference. Yes, we're going to be great. Splendid. Look at Man United and Arsenal already up on 20 points. Twice as many points as us already. It's quite ridiculous. I don't think we're going to be winning the league anytime soon. But Europa League qualification, I think, is an absolute possibility. Maybe this year. If we win this game, I believe it's a possibility this year. Look at him with De Silva. Those of you who watched the stream earlier in the week, De Silva was the left back I identified as the one I wanted. We had him. We had a fee accepted. We were just discussing a contract with him that he was happy with, and then he ended up going to Everton on like 40 grand a week more than we'd agreed with him. If he'd have asked me for that money, I'd have given it to him because I really wanted him, which is why we ended up having to panic buy 2 other left backs that just aren't as good as he is. We had a similar situation with a young right back from Man United who ended up going to Watford. So the 2 first choice fullbacks I was going to bring in didn't get to bring in, which is why we've ended up with 2 ageing Brazilians, which, I mean, I guess it's not a disaster, but it's not the young English, like, well, De Silva's not that young, but I think he's 27, 28. Younger English options that I wanted to get, not just because they were better, but because it helps us balance the squad with the English players as well. The homegrown stuff, massively important. And I know my transfer policy in the past hasn't necessarily played into that. And I try, but then things like that happen, so I have to go and sign Brazilians. Half an hour into the match, not much has happened so far. We've had that one clear-cut chance, but Miller is through here using his pace, and if he can square it, I mean, he really should have squared that to Adonis. Both of the Everton defenders had followed Miller, and Adonis was alone in the middle, and Miller's shot was just really tame, and he should have tried to find a way to get it across to Adonis. Onamar plays Danilo in, who crosses to absolutely no one. That's a really poor cross. And Everton should be able to bring the ball clear here. and they do, and we're not even attempting a tackle. Suto, of all people, is the man who actually gets the tackle in, and Kalasic plays it forward to Adonis, who has just gone straight through the Everton defender, and apparently that's not a free kick, which is fine by me. This is an extraordinarily long highlight. Usually these super long highlights do end in a goal, and it's worrying that Everton are the ones with the ball at the moment. And there's the goal. Brilliant. Now what do we do about this counter-attacking thing? We'll stick as we are as we go into half-time, but I think we probably have to come out and attack a little bit more for the second half. We can't just sit there counter-attacking whilst losing. Surely that's just silly. And these super long highlights are annoying. They're really annoying. Take them out, Sports Interactive. I guess it's in there for suspense. It started with them, went to us, goes back to them. Oh, who's going to score here? Well, we don't. All that does is tells me there is a goal, and we have to guess which way it's going to be. At least on the shorter highlights, sometimes they miss, sometimes they don't. Those really long ones, they always end in a goal. Right, we're going control for this second half. No personnel changes, and hopefully we can drag ourselves back into it. It's worrying. Our strikers, they just, I don't know. We don't seem to... I talked about it before, the word oomph. Oomph is what I'm looking for. Perhaps after all the criticism of him for being a sick note, perhaps Paulo Cesar comes in and gives us the oomph and doesn't get injured, and he ends up being the star of the season. He's back fitter earlier than I expected him to be. Obviously he's probably nursing a poorly elbow or something. Right, Miller with a chance to run at the Everton defence again. He's taking it wide, beats his man, finds Portanova, who in turn finds Adonis and Suto, and that is another poor, just weak shot. And it's another clear-cut chance that we've created, and we're just not finishing off these chances that we get. Onomar's not been very good at all. Bring Almeida on for him, and I'm going to bring Cesar on for Miller. I don't know which way around these two want to be. It doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. What does Cesar want to be? He's a poacher. Well, I'm not playing with a poacher. You can play as an advanced forward and like it. And I'm also going to bring on Kostic. We talked about it last game. Oliveira, I think his time might be approaching. He's not playing particularly well at the moment. He's 33 years old. And perhaps Kostic does need to start pushing for that starting spot alongside Panzo. The only concern is they're both left-footed, but then I would never have an issue with playing two right-footed centre-backs, so I guess that doesn't need to be an issue. Perhaps Panzo should be the one playing on the right-hand side as the more experienced of the two, but I can't be bothered to go back and change it. And, what difference is it going to make, really? Right, attack. We're now going attacking. Almeida to Adonis. Tries to find Suto. Suto wins the ball. Finds Almeida again. He misses. We've now had 3 clear-cut chances and missed them all. We are being mugged. Storaro now with the corner. And it falls to Suto. And it just about crawls over the line. I don't even know who it hit last. Adonis is the one who's been given the goal. I don't think he knew very much about it at all, though. We'll have a look at the replay from the other side. I think this must just hit him on the way through. Suto with a shot, and Adonis isn't even looking at either the ball or the goal. It just hits him as it goes past him. We're going to drop back to standard now we've equalised. We don't want to go too defensive. It would be nice to go and grab a winner, but we don't want to go and give away a goal at the other end either. A draw away from home against Everton would end up being a good result. It's Cesar. Don't kick him, he'll break. He finds, I guess last time he played, perhaps we were wearing blue. He was looking for a blue shirt. He is the scapegoat at the moment. Cesar again. And, he headed that. That's probably going to give him a concussion. And Leo down to Storaro. We've got 2 minutes of injury time. We've got an opportunity here, and it's Suto running down the right wing, where he's at his best. Finds Adonis, who hits the crossbar, I think. And that probably is it. Although there's still a minute and a bit to go. And it's Cesar who's in, squares it to Adonis. Don't know why he didn't shoot. And then in turn, I don't know why Adonis... I don't even know what he was trying to do. He had almost the whole goal to aim at, but hit it really tamely straight at their keeper. 4 clear-cut chances now. And the only goal we've scored we didn't know anything about. We need to... we've got Jamie Vardy at the club now. Perhaps we need to move him off of head of youth development and get him just doing some shooting training with the attackers, or some composure training or something. We need to sort out this finishing, because We can't go to teams like Everton, create 4 good chances and miss them all. We're not going to get away with that very often, and we might not even get away with it today yet, although I think that probably is it. That's a game we definitely should have won. Frustration. If you have enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.